I went to book some flights and it somehow got confused. When the form factor is better, I think this will take off.
I disagree, respectfully.
All right, this week in AI, welcome back, Troy. Look, you're getting a whole range of new shirts. I'm liking it.
That's right. I'm going to start the year strong here.
Why are you so worried about your old school headphones? That's what I was interested in. You're like, oh, I got AirPods.
What I said was that I just want everyone to know I do have AirPods.
So this week in AI,
I think we can't honestly have a tech-focused show without also mentioning that Apple rolled out their Vision Pro. Is it strictly an AI news item? I kind of think it is. It's a big enough news that has enough implication around like a natural computing platform shift. We got like a stream of reports coming from Silicon Valley. Who in tech is owns a Vision Pro and tells you how amazing it is and how different it is. And we're going to see a whole set of new startups that are going to attack that new modality. Again, moving away from finger for a mouse and flat screen for Windows. I think that's definitely a signal in the direction we're heading. And I do think it's very interesting.
I disagree that it's massive. I think Apple do things better. Sure, they have a nice interface that looks a bit nicer than what Meta produced. I'll come back to one point. We had it last year or year before. I had a group of 10 of us all went and bought our
Quest.
What's
Quest?
The Quest, that's it. Yeah, that tells me how connected I am to it. But we all bought our Quests. We had meetings, hung out together in the metaverse. Look, I think there was some real potential in that, playing around with it, but I never went back to it. And I have that sitting here next to my computer, and I really like it. But something's not taking me to it, and it's actually the form factor. And so I think Apple have made a nicer form factor, without a doubt. But I think wearing this chunky, clunky thing that you plug in, I think it's still the stepping stone to something that will be there. And I think something more like, actually, I think I touched on that last week with the glasses. So I think when the form factor is better, I think this will take off. To me, I think this is overpriced, overhyped, and I can't see most people spending the money on that, even with it being an Apple product. So that's my view. I think it is great. I think the interface is great, but I don't see it kicking off in the mainstream really at where it is now.
I disagree, respectfully. I'm not suggesting that the news here is that tomorrow everyone's going to buy Vision Pro and spend $3,500 on something like that. What I am interested in it is that it's a successful example of what a paradigm shift could look like. I have a Quest as well, and I agree with you. That was much more like it wasn't there yet. Okay, so a lot of things needs to be kind of there yet in order to amount to a paradigm shift. Moving on, we saw an announcement from Microsoft Copilot for Sales. I think it's basically a rebranding of a bunch of new capabilities, including Auto AI and other such, and then Salesforce Einstein and things like that. Basically, why don't we just take your CRM, run it through a LLM in order to summarize for you an account, state, give you pin points about what to say to them in the next meeting, draft your email for you, and so forth. I'm not scared about that technology taking over the world. I think it can always be more improvements about making salespeople more efficient. I ran a sales team, just getting a sync about, what's the state of that account, the amount of friction in that. If I could press a button and get a summary instead of like scheduling 3 meetings, have 6 hours of discussions and trying to take notes and then forget about them. I think that's another example of how AI is going to permeate everything, pretty much everything. So I see 2 waves permeating everything we do already and then starting a whole new thing. So the first item on this show was starting a whole new thing. With the vision, but this is just about permeating everything.
Yeah, look, and I think this is the logical next step, included in all the products. Now, you've got 2 choices as a user, and I'm seeing that every day myself now. Either I go out to another tool or it's integrated in what I'm doing. And so obviously it makes sense for Microsoft and it makes sense for Salesforce, and every other CRM are going to have their own tools within the products. I think you have to do it. I think every other product needs to look at that and has to do it. And the challenge for startups and the challenge for other providers is, people like Microsoft and Google have that advantage, already have the base of people using it. So, that's a tough one to compete. That's going to be the baseline of where we operate. So I think it's great, but I also go, for you to penetrate that market, you're going to have something significantly better.
So speaking about replace or augment with AI, so Amazon rolled out some sort of shopping assistant that's powered by LLM, and it's just from just watching the video and looking at their press release, it looks like it interviews you as you're searching for some product. I just don't buy that that's the modality of how it's going to work. but I do think it's a hint about what's possible. In this one, I'll make a bet that the whole shopping experience will be disrupted, and it's not going to be like an add-on to. I can see enterprise B2B sales is an add-on AI into the CRM, whereas shopping, which is much more consumer and much more about you flicking through things, whether or not adding some sort of AI there that to ask you questions about what sort of things are you looking for when you're shopping for a shoe. I don't think that's the direction. This is walking backward to a high touch sales process in a shop, where I think the direction should be forward here is definitely not in that going that direction. It's going to be much more about predicting what the thing I want, less decisions, less talking. I don't think Amazon is going to be the company who's going to do that. I think they're going to buy someone. That's my bet.
I find it useful. So, I mean, that's where I go. Maybe the other way as well is the way I'm finding I'm using things as well is with the plugins, for example, with OpenAI ChatGPT. That may be another way to shop, and that's the way I'm looking. Like I think I mentioned last week, I'm doubling down on my booking of flights and travel and all of that. And I go, I'd be quite open to doing the same thing when I'm looking for products and having that discussion at that point to refine it. One thing I might just touch on that, after I kind of said I'm being using the Kayak kind of plugin on ChatGPT. After I did that, I was looking. I'm once again going to Melbourne. I went to book some flights, and it somehow got confused, and it thought I was going. I think it got the airport code wrong for Melbourne, so it was MLB instead of or whatever the code is for Melbourne. And it was sending me via LA, so it was going to cost me like $1,000 to go, and taking me a day. And I was like, oh, this is really shit. This is like, I shouldn't have said anything last week. This is not, to my amazement, later on it said, so it did this and it came back and it said it's going to cost me $2,500 to go to Melbourne, which I went, this stuff's not really real. It said, hold on, we made a mistake about what it did. And it self-corrected itself and said, sorry, this is wrong. We look like we've confused ourselves. Here's the correct one. So that was pretty amazing that in the past, I would have just dropped it and said, this is not ready. But the fact that it corrected itself to me was something that I thought was really special.
I'm using a ChatGPT while coding. So every now and again, it would spit out some code. Actually, a lot of times there's an issues there. Now, it's not like a bug in the code, but it's like not exactly what I wanted. It's missing something. And then if you come back to it and says, hey, you said you're going to do X, but actually you did Y, it will be the most polite person ever. Says, you're correct. So what I give it credit is that they managed to build technology that's self-correct in a polite way. That's not, they make mistakes for sure, but at least they have the polite way. So I'm not surprised to hear that.
No, and I think this is what's kind of cool and scary is that it feels like a decent interaction, like someone would make a mistake and they're kind of not just a binary, this is what it is, and that's what's great.
On that, isn't it like contradicting what we know on computing for forever, right? Computing is like always right. It's like we think of it as like, 2 + 2 is 4. If the computer spits something that is not 4, then like literally something in the wiring is wrong. And then on top of that, you build this software today, a software stack that a single character somewhere in the operating system, and that's like millions of lines of code, is wrong. The whole thing will collapse because of some bug. Yeah. And here we have like a new computing paradigm where it's kind of, you can talk to it, self-correct itself. It's a super interesting place we are.
That's a great segue into one of the things I wanted to discuss today, which was a report by Flex OS on the future of work. So these guys look at a lot of things around the future of work. And it was 150 of the world's most used AI tools. And I thought it was interesting because it does sort of touch on a little bit about what you're saying there, which is, talk and chat, and, that sort of chat is starting to become a really big way of using things. And so look, they summarize what's going on, did some analysis of the top tools being used. And if we look at the top 10 tools being used today, look, it's no surprise that ChatGPT are at the top. And if we look at the sort of GPTs, whether it be Bing or Bard, they're in that sort of top 5. But what was interesting is things like character AI. So writing and that was really interesting in terms of social and characters and interacting are really doing well. They're the fourth most popular tool that's in there, and Grammarly as well in terms of writing. And so they've done a really great analysis of what's in there. But if we look at the sort of the top 10, those GPTs are writing, the social, you talk about coding, but equally, Replit in terms of coding assistance. So that Copilot thing as well is really taking off. So look, the report showed that there were over 60 platforms that had over a million users. To me, it's starting to show that AI tools are becoming integral part of daily tasks. And I really feel we are still these early adopters. And so we're starting to see these trends, and that's going to expand out as we go along to the general population. One of the interesting things for me is we've talked about, how we all hang out and watch Netflix, but in fact, people are hanging out and using ChatGPT more than they are with Netflix. And to me, that was quite surprising. Even if this is where we are today, and it's the realms of people who are reasonably technical or early adopters, says something to me that this is catching on, right? And think of how how many people. I mean, it probably says as well how subscribers have come off Netflix, maybe as well, into some of the other platforms. But it is a sign that this is surprisingly popular.
Wait, I'm
Spending
not
more.
I'm not getting it. They're telling you that people spend more time on ChatGPT than in Netflix.
So what we're saying is that the monthly visits. So
Wow.
if I look at the data that's there, it says ChatGPT brings over 1.6 billion monthly visits, putting it ahead of Netflix and the New York Times. Now that's pretty significant. If we think,
What's that mean? Like if I'm sitting and this is open on my computer all the time and I just ask it instead of Google, does that count as a single monthly use visit or 100?
well, we're talking about the number of visits to there. So we can have a look at that, but I believe it's how many people are going to there. And I think whether you went there
Right.
and watched Netflix for 5 minutes or you went and used ChatGPT for longer, the fact is
Okay.
you're going there, you're thinking about going there, and I think that's significant. The fact that people are using that. Look, the report highlighted that there's right now there's quite a few concentrated winners. We can see that.
That's fast. That was fast. Like a year into the revolution and talking into about consolidation, either it's full of themselves or that's been fast. But I can see that as well. Like it's the internet dynamics of winner takes all.
Obviously, that market share is a hard thing. That getting in there first, getting that level of network effects is really important, and we're seeing that. But I do think there will be some changes as we go along. I think one of the other sort of thing is around some of the data that I talked about in terms of the next generation of users and looking at, for example, use of character AI. Just the fact that 18 to 24-year-olds make up 50 to 60% of the users of that platform. That's why I think in the next 5-10 years we're going to see this is going to be really integral as part of future organizations, because the next level of people coming into the companies are going to know how to use all of these tools as the baseline, and this is going to continue. So I'm going to keep an eye out on where we're going further with this.
Awesome. Good show today.
I'll catch you next week. That's This Week in AI.